Get inspired. Get motivated. Light your fire. Create your life. This is Creativity Sparks Journal.
Hi, this is Tami-Patzer, and I am happy to introduce Mary Snyder from Winnipeg, Canada. And has the unique distinction of having her very, very first adult coloring book in publication, and it has the quilting theme. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you.
I'm really, really happy to have you here. Can you just give me a little idea of, number one, tell me a little bit about your background, and specifically, how did you get started creating adult coloring books?
Well, I've always been creative in everything I've done. In the last 6 years, I lost my mom, and after that, I started quilting. My girlfriend got me hooked on quilting, and because quilting is so detailed and stuff like that, as a beginner quilter, I had no idea what I was doing and everything else. And so I had met a couple of friends back in September and showed them my portfolio, what I can do. And one of them suggested that I create an adult coloring book. And at the time, I had never heard of an adult coloring book, so I wasn't sure what he was actually talking about. And so then he showed me, and then we all laughed, of course. But that started me on this journey about this adult coloring book. And that's where I am now.
Well, I think it's funny because the term adult, a lot of people, they take pause, and then it's like, yeah, just like it says, it's for grown-ups. It doesn't have anything to do with anything else other than to make sure people understand it's not a children's coloring book like what we used to use when we were kids. That adult coloring books are actually designed for adults who enjoy coloring and creation. So as a quilter and a coloring book artist, do you hand draw these? Do you do it all online? How do you create your designs?
Well, at first I didn't have a computer, so I just penciled it all out and had my first penciled protege type or whatever. And then once I got the computer, which is a Mac, I learned how to use Pages, and that's what I created this whole book in. So every design, every word in there is created in the Mac Apple Pages, and each one of them are mine. Like I hand drawn every one of them.
So how many pages does your book have?
There's 128 pages in total. Some of them are just one-sided because of the coloring aspect. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So that's a big book for a coloring book, from what I understand, from the different people I've talked to. So if you this is your first book, do you have more books in the works?
I do.
Can you describe what you're planning on?
Well, this was the first book of originally I had 12 ideas for Get Hooked on Quilting coloring books. And so this was the first one. I just wanted to see how it went out and if people liked it and stuff before I put all the time and effort into creating more. And so each book will have a different theme, like this one is in the beginning. Because it's my very first one. And then I have one about stars, one about Irish, one about holidays, like all different kinds of themes and blocks. And then I have other ones that I've been working on too, but I don't want to say that yet.
Oh, okay. So with the quilting, what makes that unique, I'm in my mind, I've never quilted, but I do know I appreciate quilts. And I have a concept in my mind of what they are. So the designs that you've created in the quilting coloring book are designs that somebody actually could not only color, but they could end up as being quilts too, I guess, if
Correct.
Somebody wanted to do that. That's really interesting. So with your coloring books, I would imagine that they're not only something that a grown-up would like, but what about children? Have you ever done any coloring parties, or have you thought about that?
Well, I had my granddaughters over one time, and they're 3 and 5 years old, and they really wanted to color in my protege books. And so we put the pencil crayons and crayons out, and they started coloring in the book, and they had so much fun because it's not only just coloring, but it's also you can design your own block. Like the block is there, but I left it blank, so if you wanted to create your own design on it, or if you just wanted to color it solid. And so one of the girls was making their own design, one of the girls was coloring it just solid, and had a lot of fun.
Oh, that's really a good idea. So not only can they get ideas from your quilting book, they can see the block and then make their own designs. That's really a good idea. So why do you think adults are so almost frenzied over these adult coloring books?
Well, like I said, I love creativity and I love coloring, and I think it's just an okay way of saying because I'm an adult, I can color now. Whereas if you pick up a Barbie or an old coloring book, it's for the little kids. So I think for me it's unique because if I go to the store, I say I want a coloring book and they have adult ones, then that's the one I was going to choose and not feel ashamed of coloring.
Oh.
I don't know.
So there's a lot of talk about the health benefits or the stress relief benefits of coloring books. Do you think that that's a true statement about coloring?
Yes, I think it is. But I think also too, because like I know there's a lot of people out there that aren't creative. And so, but they still like to color and they still like to kind of be creative. So I think that's a good way of them just tapping into something that they can do and not feel bad about.
Right. Well, a lot of people, it's almost like giving yourself permission to color and to go back to that time when coloring was just part of your normal daily life. You know, when we were kids, it was like, you know, nothing was better than the smell of a box of Crayola crayons. So what medium do you like to use? Or are you, some people I've talked to say, you know, I just like to draw the patterns. I don't necessarily like to color. So where do you fall and what's your favorite medium?
Well, I like doing all of it. I like the ink because I like doing dot art, but my favorite is the pencil crayons. And the reason for that is because I like to do a lot of blending, and it's really hard to do that with crayons and markers and stuff. And with pencil crayons, it's a clear, like you can do a clear gradient of colors and not see the lines and stuff like you would with markers.
Oh, that's interesting. So pencil crayons, what would that be, like a colored pencil or a specific type of crayon that's more like a pencil?
Oh, they're pencils with crayons? Like, yeah.
Okay. Well, it might be the Canadians might call things a little bit different. So
yeah.
Probably many people understand exactly what you're talking about. I want to know if you have any big tips. I know that a lot of people, you know, after they color these, they want to keep them or possibly give them away as a gift or frame them. Do you have any tips about how to make sure that your coloring turns out so that you could keep it for a long time?
Yes. Well, in my book, I've actually created blocks that you can actually cut out and create a wall hanging quilt with it. But my suggestion is take your time coloring them, because some people, they just like to rush and get it over with. Well, something you want to, as a keepsake, you want to take your time and really make sure you do it the way you want it and stuff. And I think, well, for me, because there's some things that fade over time, I find if you laminate it, it seems to stay a lot clearer and last a lot longer. I hope that helps.
Oh, well, I can see that if you laminate it, then of course you have it encapsulated in that. Let's go ahead and I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the business side of coloring books. And this might be, I think from your perspective as a first-time coloring book producer, publisher, that you might have some insight into this. because you're still new at that part of it. So if I wanted to create a coloring book or start making pages, what would you advise me to do to start?
I find that for me, I find the best thing to do is once you have an idea, just use paper and pencil and get the layout. Like that's how I started mine is I had a piece of paper and a pencil and I just started drawing what I want. Though the first step I did was go and research adult coloring books because I wanted to know what people liked, what they didn't like, different things like that. And then I went to the drawing board and I kind of sketched out what I wanted and stuff. But yeah, I think the hardest thing is creating that first book. Well, for me anyways, because I have because of where to get it printed and if you do it on Amazon, if you do it locally, if you go to a print shop, the different costs that are involved, and different things like how many pages are in the book, because some places you print, if there's not enough pages, they can't print the name and stuff on the side of the book, which I really wanted. And and just have fun.
So some of the things that you did to research is you did research on coloring books to see what people wanted. So I take it that you read a lot of reviews about different coloring books so that you're reading what the readers said they wanted.
Correct.
And where did you end up? Did you use CreateSpace to create your book, or did you go with a different type of publishing system?
No, I used CreateSpace. And because of that, my first protege was a landscaped with coil bound, and they didn't do landscape or coil bound. And so I had to change that up a little bit. And so this is my first edition. So I might come up with a special edition that's coil bound and landscape yet. I'm not sure.
Right. I've heard that CreateSpace, it's pretty much a perfect bound type of a book, as opposed to being able to have the quails or something like that. But, it's, again, I think what I really admire about what you've done is that you had an idea and you actually did it. And now you have a published book with 128 pages of designs. And so you've actually done what many, many people cannot say they've done, which is, hey, I have a published coloring book, because you took action. And I think that's really, really important that anybody, no matter what they're doing, that they have to take that step and take action. So pat yourself on the back for the fact that you started. I think that's a really cool thing. So you have obviously several coloring books coming up. Do you work on your coloring books every single day, or what's your schedule?
Excuse me. Well, I started working on other coloring books, but my goal was to get this one out and published. And then now that this one is done, now I'm taking the time and going through and because my book has been out for a little bit, a few people have said this is what they like, which is what's in the book. And so I wanted to find out what people like about it or what they don't like about it before I create the other ones. But in the meantime, I'm still creating what I call sample fabrics. So creating like flowers and stars and different things like that to put in the next book that aren't in this book. So
very interesting. I asked you to come up with a big question or an answer, and I love what you wrote in the pre-show notes, and you talked about the big why. And this is something that many people skip or they don't even think about. But why are you creating adult coloring books? So what is your big why?
Well, for me, when I started quilting, I've had a few friends that learned how to quilt, and they just assumed that I knew how to too. So they would come up and they say, "Oh, well, here's a pattern, go do it." And because I have a hard time following patterns, I see something and I go create it. So the first time I followed a pattern, I had a hard time understanding the lingo in quilting. And even my very first block, it said cut WOF. And I go, what is that? And they said, well, it's with the fabric. But just little things like that, that a new beginner would have no idea what it is. And so in my book, I have a sample block, and the blocks are like, if you're a quilter, you'd know what, as soon as you heard the name, you'd know what it is. But I also have 4 samples of how different colors would make it look. But I also have quilting tips for the newest beginner. And the reason I came up with this is, like I said, because I'm a new quilter. But then there's lots of quilters that haven't been able to quilt for a lot of years because of arthritis or different things like that. But they still like to be creative. And so I made it so if you're new at quilting, if you're mediocre, if you're really good, if you're past quilting, the actual physical quilting stage, that you would enjoy the book.
Oh, okay. So if you can't do the physical activity of quilting with fabric, you can transfer all that into coloring in a book.
Correct.
Oh, cool. I really like that. If we want to find out more about you and your books and services, where can we go?
I do have a website. It's called mlscreations.ca, and that's basically everything I do. And then I have a gethookedonquilting.ca website, and that'll be finished once I have my book launch, because I haven't had my book launch yet, which is April 9th. And then I also have a Facebook page, Mary Snyder, or Get Hooked on Quilting Facebook.
Okay, great. So you have your book launch is coming out April 9th. So everybody mark that on the calendar. And of course, if you're listening to this after April 9th, go ahead and go check out mlscreations.ca or gethookedonquilting.ca or Mary's Facebook pages. So Mary, I really, really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about your new coloring book. And I learned a lot about not only adult coloring books, but learned a little bit about quilting. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on your program. I appreciate it.
This is Tami-Patzer. Go make it a great day.
Get inspired. Get motivated. Light your fire. Create your life. This is Creativity Sparks Journal.